Over the last couple of weeks, I've been using the Google Pixel 2 as my main phone. Today I decided to talk about the specifications of the phone and review them to let people know if it's worth buying. This is the Pixel 2 specs video. Hello everybody, my name is Matt and this is Real World Review. What I'm going to do is go over the specs of the phone, and at the end I will score the phone based on my personal experiences as a user and cell phone repairman. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section or on Twitter at @MattofRWR. Let's get started. To start, our first category is the outside hardware. Let's start with the display. The display is a 5-inch AMOLED screen with a resolution of 1080 by 1920, totaling 441 pixels per inch. The maximum screen brightness is about 410 nits, which isn't too bad for an AMOLED screen. There is Corning Gorilla Glass covering the AMOLED display, making the front scratch resistant. The screen to body ratio is about 68% and it is pretty obvious. The screen ratio is 16:9, which is good and bad. Let's talk about the rest of the front. We start with the top where the earpiece and the sensors are. There is a speaker grill that covers the earpiece, and to the left of that is an 8 megapixel front camera. Above the speaker are the proximity and ambient light sensors. Unlike most Samsung phones that I have been reviewing, the Pixel 2 actually has a microphone under the speaker mesh. And to the right of all of that is a hidden LED notification light. I actually did not know that this was here until I started recording this video. On the bottom portion there is a speaker grill that covers the second speaker and another microphone. More on that later. Moving on to the frame. On the bottom there is a USB-C 3.1 port and a random hole. No, it's not a microphone. On the right side is the power button and the volume buttons. On the left side there is a single SIM card tray. And on the top there is a single hole for the microphone. That's it. On the back of the device is a 12.2 megapixel camera that is slightly protruding out of the back. To the left of that is a dual LED flash unit with a laser autofocus unit. Under that is a small piece of glass with the rest of the back being aluminum. There is also a plastic fingerprint scanner. As for the size, the device is 145.7 millimeters tall, 69.7 millimeters wide, and 7.8 millimeters thick, or 5.74 inches tall, 2.74 inches wide, and 0.31 inches thick. As for the weight, the Pixel 2 is 143 grams, or 5.01 ounces. The phone is water resistant, but does not have a user removable battery or back. And now we move on to the cameras. There is a 12.2 megapixel sensor with a dual LED flash along with laser and dual pixel autofocus. The aperture is f1.8 and the pixel size is 1.4 micrometers. The phone supports different camera features like optical image stabilization, portrait mode, AR stickers, and photosphere. The rear camera can record video in a couple of ways. You can record 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second, 720p at 30 or 60 frames per second, and slow motion video can be captured at 1080p at 120 frames per second or 720p at 240 frames per second. The front camera is an 8 megapixel sensor with a f2.4 aperture. It allows for a max of 1080p recording at 30 frames per second. It is a fixed focus sensor and the pixel size is 1.4 micrometers. Next is the inside hardware. As usual, we start with the processor. The processor in this phone is a 64-bit Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chip. It is a 10nm octa-core processor with 4 cores running at 2.35 GHz and the other 4 cores running at 1.9 GHz. Geekbench gives the phone a score of around 1919 for the single core and 6629 for the multi-core test. The GPU in this phone is the Adreno 540 that runs at 710 MHz. When testing the GPU, Geekbench gives the phone a score of around 7,473. This phone has 4GB of LPDDR4X RAM, which is standard for most flagship phones. The model that I'm reviewing is the G011A and it is unlocked. The phone supports 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G, assuming that the market that you're in still supports those, along with LTE bands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12, 13, 17, 20, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30, 32, 38, 40, 41, and 46. As for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi chip is a 802.11a, B, G, N, AC MIMO, and the Bluetooth is version 5.0. The phone also supports NFC, GPS, and GLONASS. The battery is a 2700 mAh lithium-ion cell that is supposed to last all day. Google doesn't post how long the battery will last, but tech sites estimate up to 26 hours of talk time and up to 16 hours of internet usage. The phone does support Quick Charge 2.0, but will charge fastest with the power delivery charger. The phone comes out of the box with Android 8.0 Oreo and has since been updated to Android 8.1 Oreo. Google promises 3 years of updates starting from October 2017. The phone supports a bunch of different audio formats like FLAC, AMR, M4A, and WAV. As for video playback, the phone supports a few formats like MP4 and H.264. Now that we have gone over the specs, it's time for me to give this phone a score. Note that this phone comes with 64 or 128 gigabytes and can be purchased new for $650 or $750 US dollars. It should also be noted that this phone is half a year old and most people will want to buy this phone used, and the scoring does account for this. Let's start with the frame. The phone is made out of glass and metal. The front is mainly glass and the back is metal with a little bit of glass. The screen is a flat AMOLED display and can break easily under pressure, but the front glass is fairly durable. Even though the frame is metal, you shouldn't have to worry too much about bending. The glass on the back, however, is somewhat easy to break. Well, according to my viewers, it is. The camera lens protrudes a little bit, but it's not enough to cause problems. As for the size, the phone is actually perfect, but I've gotten used to bigger phones, so it seems very small right now. With this said, using the phone one-handed is simple. The fingerprint scanner is somewhat low, but it is definitely easy to get used to. Something that I thought was weird is the antenna band placement. There are 2 symmetrical lines on the right and bottom, and then random placements on the top and the left side. Weird for sure, but not a bad thing. Lastly, I want to mention something that I never use, but I can see how this could be cool. If you squeeze the phone, the Google Assistant will open up. That's about it. Gimmicky? Maybe, but it's definitely better than having a button on the outside for your assistant that you may never use. Overall, I would give the outside hardware an 8.25 out of 10. Next is the screen. I love having AMOLED screens, but this one seems a little off. It might be because the screen is a 1080p screen, but the image doesn't look as bright as Samsung devices that I've gotten used to. With this said, it isn't a bad screen, it just didn't perform as well as I thought it would. A 5-inch screen is small by today's standards, but you will definitely get used to it. It took me a couple of days to get used to the small screen, but I finally did. I complained about having to use it like it was a BlackBerry Pearl, but it's not that bad. It is strange that Google stuck with a 16:9 screen when 18:9 is becoming the norm, but it is nice to have the option of both when you compare it to the Pixel 2 XL. Those bezels are pretty big, and honestly it doesn't seem like they were needed, but you get used to them. Honestly, the screen is perfect for those who like smaller phones, so the screen will get an 8 out of 10. Next is the inside hardware. The Snapdragon 835 processor was the top of the line in 2017, but it is still an awesome processor in 2018. With stock Android, this phone actually seems faster than the Samsung S9 Plus, which I feel is pretty crazy. The 2700 mAh battery in this phone sucks. It did not last as long as I thought it would. The Moto Z2 Force has a similar battery, bigger and higher resolution screen, and the battery life seems to last a lot longer than the Pixel 2. I love that there are 2 speakers in the front, but they don't seem as loud as I thought they would. When watching videos, I had to turn the speakers almost all the way up when there was only just a little bit of noise in the room. Maybe this year they will put louder speakers in these phones. I like that you can buy these phones in 64GB or 128GB options, but I've always wished that Pixel phones had an SD card slot. The phone gets warm after a few minutes of usage, but it isn't unbearable. Another thing that is annoying is that the phone still doesn't have wireless charging, but that's because of the metal back. One day Google will bring back wireless charging. Well, hopefully. Overall, this phone gets a 7.75 out of 10 for the inside hardware. Next is the camera. It isn't a surprise that this camera is absolutely amazing. The Pixel was known for having an amazing camera, and with the second generation, they made the camera dramatically better without increasing the megapixel count. There are many different features in the camera app, but they aren't pointless. With this said, the phone doesn't have a Pro mode option, which is kind of strange. But like I said, there is slow motion, panorama, photosphere, portrait, and AR stickers. There is an option for motion photos, which is essentially like live photos from the iPhone, but a lot clearer and very stable. The way that they set up the back camera is pretty awesome because it is essentially a dual camera setup squished into one sensor. This gives you the option of portrait mode that actually looks really good. Even the front camera does a good job with portrait mode. And even at night, this camera seems to pick up the image very well. I heard that this camera is amazing, but I was honestly surprised at how well this camera works, and it isn't filled with gimmicks like some other phones. As you can assume, I am giving the camera a 9 out of 10. Next is the software. The Pixel 2 comes out with Android 8.0 Oreo out of the box and has been updated to 8.1 a couple months ago. Stock Android is the best because it is all Android and no bloat. I mean, there is some Google bloat, but honestly it's all pretty useful. The crazy thing is that stock Android is so good that this phone actually seems as fast as my Samsung S9 Plus, like I said before. That alone should tell you how well Android is optimized for this phone. With this said, there are some gestures and options that have been added on to Android over the years that we have seen in other manufacturers' skins, like the always-on display and double tap to wake. The awesome thing about this phone is that you will get the newest software first, regardless of what carrier it's on. The software never gets put into the scoring, but I will still give it an amazing 9.25 out of 10. The last score is the future-proofing score. This phone has been out half a year, and there have been some issues with this phone, but they have been fixed with software updates. The battery isn't the best, but it doesn't seem like it's degrading that quickly. The USB-C port on the bottom is USB 3.1, which doesn't seem like much today, but in the future it will be beneficial. The Snapdragon 835 processor is a year old, but it should still be perfect for the next 2 or 3 years. There are some concerns about screen burn-in on these phones, but it is said that a software update came out to lower the screen brightness to prevent this from happening. If anything, there shouldn't be much to worry about because this phone actually has a 2-year warranty in the United States. Overall, I would say that this phone is future-proof and gets an 8 out of 10. Add up the scores and this phone gets a 41 out of 50, or 82%. This is an awesome phone, but honestly, I don't think it's worth the price. I mean, it is a good phone, but $650 is a lot of money for a new one. Even half a year later, these phones still go for about $500 used, which is crazy to me. This does, however, prove that Google phones do hold their value. As of now, if you're looking for a stock Android phone, this is definitely going to be the perfect phone to pick. And that's it. Let me know what else you want me to review in the comment section below or on Twitter @MattofRWR. And I have a question for you. How can Google top this phone? Let me know, and feel free to follow me on the social media listed above. Also, subscribe to my channel so you can see the basics video. Every sub helps. Thanks for watching.